This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a junior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
Hi, Audrey. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing well.
Good.
What is this episode all about?
So this is an interview with an industrial and systems engineering student, Fifi.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was a good episode because I think she really exemplifies a lot of kind of what ISE, industrial and systems engineering, is here at USC.
Mm-hmm.
So she actually sort of started in mechanical engineering this time at Fifi in AME 101 freshman year, but switched out into ISE, and kind of through her conversation, she was like, I didn't really know what ISE was, but I probably would have started there if I would have known. So in the episode, she does a really great job of explaining kind of what the major is, how to relate it maybe to high schoolers to see if their interests align with it. And then she's done a lot of super cool things with it. So she actually studied abroad sophomore year in New Zealand and took like 4 classes for her major there.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. And then after that year, she interned at an aerospace company doing sort of systems engineering, which is a big part of the aerospace engineering industry. And then this coming summer, she's trying out consulting with West Monroe Partners up in Seattle.
That's great.
Yeah.
ISE, I'm sure that acronym is going to get thrown around a lot. ISE is Industrial and Systems Engineering. It is an amazing program. It is cool. And the problem is that a lot of students from a high school perspective don't know what it is. And I think the first thing that people see is industrial. And so I think industrial engineering, which is kind of where it comes from, the beginning of industrial and systems engineering. But a lot of people just think like, oh, like factories.
Yeah.
And that's not a part of it. My best thing for students to think about is that if they've ever wanted to combine engineering and business, this is somewhat of a natural combination of that. I often say that industrial and systems engineers are involved in the engineering of better businesses. They deal with that idea of creating the bottom line for businesses, making them more efficient, going through all these different consulting practices to get down to it, whether it's a human resource issue, whether it's an actual logistics and supply chain issue, whether it's down to how things actually run from the day-to-day, operating procedures, safety, industrial design comes into it as well. ISEs do everything, and every company hires ISEs.
Exactly. And that's kind of what Fifi talks about, how really it applies to such a broad range of people because you're taking a lot of different courses sort of with this goal of efficiency and operations management, et cetera. So maybe if you're a little bit interested in computer science, but also business, this is a good combination. Or if you're interested in project management or something like that, It's a good combination. And I think it's really hard to conceptualize that as a high schooler because it's not, and Fifi and I kind of talked about this, it's not really like one class in high school. It kind of combines a lot of the skills you're getting from different classes.
Yeah.
But there are a couple areas that Fifi pointed out as kind of a little heavier, like stats, programming, things like that. So if you're interested in those things, this is definitely a worthwhile episode to listen to and maybe think about industrial and systems engineering.
That's great. Well, let's get out of the way and give it over to Fifi to talk about what the heck industrial and systems engineering is all about.
Welcome to the podcast, Fifi.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
Introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Fifi, and I'm a junior studying industrial and systems engineering. I grew up in Virginia and I went to high school in San Diego, and I actually started mechanical and switched into ISE after my first semester. Mostly because I just didn't know what it was when I came to USC. I feel like I probably would have chosen it had I known about it. But, yeah, I really love it.
Awesome.
It's been awesome.
So what is industrial and systems engineering?
Yeah. I'll give a pretty long definition. I feel like every concise definition I've heard of ISE leaves out a lot of the parts of the major that I feel like are important. So you're basically a jack of all trades in engineering if you study ISE. It's a little bit of mechanical, electrical, computer science, whatever interests you in engineering, you can probably find a way to include it into ISE. Personally, I think what the aspect of it that I like the most is you're basically like a better, more technical business major. I see a lot of people in ISE going after consulting jobs or things that are probably more business focused than most other engineers, but because we have a technical background and because we've taken some coding classes and we understand, physics and all these things that non-technical majors just don't get in their education, I think we're much more well-rounded and better problem solvers. So, you can take it in a million different ways, which I think is why it's so hard to describe in one single definition. But basically, if you want to be sort of a mini expert at a lot of things engineering and non-engineering, then ISE is a really good fit for you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you think for a high school student, is there any way to compare it to something you would maybe do in high school? Because I feel like with other majors, it's really easy to think in physics, this kind of relates to mechanical engineering, or, I know computers, I should study computer science, but it's harder to see that aspect because you're working sort of with all of those things.
Yeah. I don't know if there's really... I'm trying to think of a class I took in high school that relates to what I do now, and it's hard because they all did. That's the thing with ISE, is that it's not just one topic, it's not one class you took in high school. It really combines aspects of so many of them into one single major. So probably a mix of a stats class, plus if you took AP computer science, then that is definitely a part of it. There's so much things. I think there's also a lot of stuff that I just never even encountered in high school. Things like operations research and efficiency optimization. That was never really a discussion in any high school class, but it's cool. It is. I never felt unprepared for that because, again, ISE draws on so many different disciplines that, you don't have to be an expert in one single topic. If you're good at a couple different things and want to find a way to combine those, then ISE is really good for that. Yeah.
So what is the coursework like then at USC? What sort of classes are you taking?
Yeah, so I usually, I think, see them fall into 3 or 4 different categories. First is statistics sort of based math. So I've taken, probability in engineering was the name of one of my courses, and statistics of engineering was another one. So it's definitely, on the math side, it's stats heavy. I'd also say computer science. I know many IC majors who have taken numerous coding classes. My first one was in Python, the language Python. I know some people do MATLAB and C++. There's, you can kind of take it a bunch of different ways. So that's another category. I'd say a third is more non-technical business, but still with, I guess, more of a technical
still within
discussion.
The school,
still within engineering more.
Courses.
It's still part of Viterbi. It's not, you're not taking Marshall business classes. It's still part of Viterbi, but it sort of discusses, more business strategy and things like that, and how technical aspects of the business fit into that. And then now recently I've taken a more operations and sort of mathematical modeling classes, like deterministic models and stochastic models, which don't worry if you don't know what that means. I didn't either a year ago. But so I'm sure as I take more classes, I'll see more categories. That's the whole thing of ISE, is there's a million categories and it's hard to put it all together. Those are sort of the different realms of classes that I take.
That's super cool. So then what can you do with all of this? What sort of fields are students going into? What are you doing with it? What do you want to do with it?
Totally. Again, like the major, very broad and very different ways that people go with it. I think a big draw is consulting, because consulting is a very problem-solving type, broad type industry that attracts a lot of ISE majors, and I think we stand out and differentiate ourselves from the business majors typically going for that because we have a technical background. I think we're a lot more competitive for those jobs, which is cool. I see people going into aerospace. I had an internship last summer as a systems engineer in an aerospace company. I see people going completely non-engineering. I've seen people go into entertainment and I don't know. It really is so broad and you can do a lot with it. I think, I would say people either stay within engineering, and typically that leads to aerospace, and a lot of the technical work you can do with systems engineering there's some great opportunities for that in the aerospace industry. Yeah. And then consulting is kind of the bridge between engineering and the business world. And then I see people going towards straight business jobs, even like financial jobs, banking jobs. And they are very unique candidates for that because they're engineers and they're not the business majors that those companies are typically seeing in their recruiting process.
Totally. That makes sense. Yeah, I took a class last semester and it was like aerospace systems, and I didn't realize, like, of course, when you're building a plane, like, a huge part of the engineering work that's going on into it is systems engineering.
Yeah.
Because it's, like, coordinating the schedule, getting everything done, and then getting all the parts together. Like, the safety checks. It's so insane, like, that's, I don't know, a huge part of it.
Massive.
You can probably speak to that a little more.
Yeah,
but.
So when I was a systems engineer last summer, I worked for a company called Moog Aircraft Group, and...
Are they in Southern California? Or?
Yeah, they're in Torrance in LA.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think they have their headquarters in New York. I want to say, I'm not sure though. But yeah, so basically I got to see firsthand what sort of systems engineering looks like, because again, it had always been described to me as this very broad thing, and I didn't really know what it was concretely. But yeah, basically, you're taking what the mechanical team built and what the electrical team built and what the software had been built, and putting it all together into the final system that will actually be the product that you're delivering to, whomever your client is. And that was really cool to see. And there's a lot you can do within that. Testing is a big part of that. So I think a lot of people like systems because you kind of get to deal with the final product when things are, there's actually something to see that's working, which is really cool. So I wrote a lot of test scripts and, worked with sort of the final part of that. You can also work at the beginning and working with requirements, which is, when you're speaking with your client, you're trying to figure out what it is you want your product or system to do. And it actually is a much more in-depth process than I think most people realize. You have to really get it in writing of, it must, the dial must turn this number of degrees or, whatever. It can get really specific. And you have to have all that fleshed out before you start building, or else you don't really know what you're building. Yeah. So it's cool. Systems really spans from the beginning of a project to the end, and there's a lot you can do with it. Yeah.
And it's cool that you get to learn about, like, the electrical, the mechanical, kind of like you were talking about with your courses. Like, you're kind of working with those teams, so of course you have a say in that engineering, and then kind of putting it all together.
Totally, yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome.
It's really interdisciplinary. You get to work with a lot of different people, which is cool.
That's super cool. Okay, so then this summer you said you're working at West Monroe Partners, so now you're going more the consulting group. So what's that going to be like?
Yeah, so last summer I worked at Moog. This summer I'll be at West Monroe Partners in Seattle. And they are a consulting firm, but they do technical consulting. So there's a good amount of technicality in the client work. So I'll be working with the data engineering team and using a programming language, a database language called SQL to work with clients and their databases and figure out how to visualize and understand their data in a way that's really helpful to them, in a way that will help them, make decisions on how they want to run their business in the future. I don't exactly know what I'll be working on yet because it's still a bit early, but I'm really excited. I think it'll be a really good combination of the technical aspects of ISE, and also it'll be cool to see it applied to a real world business and see how that'll affect an industry.
That's super cool. Oh my
it'll
gosh.
Be cool.
So then, you guys take a SQL class like sophomore year, right? Or
I took it. I was abroad 2 semesters ago in New Zealand, and I took it there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about being abroad then. That's amazing.
That's
so cool. So
it was so cool.
New Zealand, your spring semester sophomore year, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit earlier than most, just because that worked with my schedule better. But
and what made you decide you wanted to study abroad?
So I had always, even before coming to college, I wanted to do that. I feel like whenever you hear interviews with people or hear people speaking about what their biggest regret from college was, it was that they didn't study abroad. So I definitely wanted to do it. I didn't really want to sell myself on it because I knew that at a lot of places it's hard to do with engineering, but I was so pleasantly surprised at how easy it was with my major specifically in USC. So I know, I'm sure, I don't know if your listeners have heard about Viterbi Abroad, which is USC's engineering school's specific study abroad opportunity for engineering students. I didn't do that. I did it through Dornsife, which is our like general college, and I took all major classes. So I took 4 classes that all counted towards my major at the University of Auckland, but it was not through Viterbi's program at all, which, like, the fact that that was possible is crazy and awesome, and I'm so glad I got to do it. But it was so easy. My advisor had like 30 pre-approved courses with the University of Auckland from my major, so I just had to like find the ones that worked at University of Auckland's schedule in a week, and I got to do it. So yeah, I took a database course there, and I took 3 other ISE classes as well.
That's so cool. Oh my goodness. So then, how was it? Because I feel like junior year, so many people are studying abroad, so maybe you have a couple people you know at whatever school you're going to, but you kind of, like, you're pretty young at that point early on. Was it, like, scary? I don't know.
You know, looking back, I feel like so many people now have asked me, like, oh, who'd you go with to New Zealand? And I was like, I didn't. I went completely by myself, which maybe was a bit naive, but I had the best time. I went, so because Auckland and New Zealand are in the summer, or in the southern hemisphere, their academic calendars like shifted forward a month or so. So I didn't start class until March 4th, which is super late. So I actually, so I went a month early.
Best winter break ever.
It was like, I was off from like December 12th through, through March 4th. But I went to New Zealand a month early, and I did a solo trip on the South Island by myself.
Best Fifi thing I've ever heard. That's amazing.
It was crazy. And that was the first time I did anything like that, so it definitely took some convincing of my parents. But New Zealand's very safe, so it was all good. But, that was so cool. So I had some time in New Zealand sort of like as a traveler before the program started or any class started, which was really cool to do. And that was like the first time I just like had no responsibilities for a whole month. It was awesome. But and then class started, and it was really cool. I think, New Zealand's cool because it is English speaking, so there wasn't a crazy culture shock or anything, which was good since I was taking 4 engineering classes. That would have been so hard to do in like French or I don't know, whatever. They made it really easy, and it was cool to see sort of how those classes were run at another university. It made me appreciate some things about USC, like, smaller class sizes. University of Auckland had huge classes, but, being able, it was such a great experience, and I was able to do so many things, like, just, see that part of the world, which I don't know when I would have had the opportunity to do that otherwise, and check off so many bucket list things. I went skydiving, and I went scuba diving the Great Barrier Reef. It's crazy. It sounds so stupid coming out of my mouth. But it was awesome.
And did you meet a lot of people there that you're like still friends with? Like, how is it in that regard?
Yeah, I actually met a lot of European friends. There were a bunch of like Scandinavian and Danish and German Europeans were I guess all came to New Zealand. I don't know. There was like no Italians, no French, no Spanish people, just like the northern part of Europe. But we had a big group of like 15 of us, and a couple other Americans were in it too. And it's really great. I feel like making friends abroad was so easy because I think everyone is there just, to have a really good time for 5 or 6 months. So everyone's really welcoming and inclusive, and we still talk to this day. We have a big Facebook Messenger group chat, and I'm going to Spain for spring break this year, and I'm going to meet up with some of them.
Wait, really? Me too. Where are you
going? I know. We're going to Madrid and Valencia and Barcelona. I know
are we in Barcelona at the same time?
I think we might be.
I'll see you in Barcelona.
Yeah, and you'll also see maybe some of my abroad friends.
I'm so excited.
So
to
great.
That.
I kind of had my abroad group that was, everyone's available, and we did weekend trips every weekend. And then I also was able to meet a lot of Kiwi friends. I lived with 2 Kiwis, and in my classes.
In a dorm, or just like, did you find housing?
It was University of Auckland housing, but it was an apartment. So it was kind of, I think, like the Village.
Okay,
it was kind of like that. And it was great. Yeah, really nice apartment, and like right next to campus, and it was a big like community type thing, so I was able to meet a lot of other Kiwis through that, and they're just the nicest people. They really are the nicest people. They could not be more welcoming.
Yeah, there like Stephen Colbert had something like
really?
Going to New Zealand recently. I watched that. My cousin studied abroad in Australia.
Yeah.
And he like went to New Zealand for a bit, so he was telling me that over the break too.
Yeah,
but
they're so friendly, and their accent is so fun to listen to.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's like a better Australian. I don't know why. It's just like something about it is so nice to listen to.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, I think probably everyone's jealous now that you got to spend all the time.
If you can go to New Zealand, definitely make it happen. It's the best.
So then now it's sophomore year, so now you're probably into like the thick of some of your major courses.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going well. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I must have spread it out in a way that was good. I think this semester is going to be kind of hard because I'm taking like my senior design course and things like that. But
you're taking your senior design course this year?
Yeah, I'm starting it now because if you come in with AP credit, you can.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Is that the capstone one? So how does that course work for ISE?
That's like, so I think they pair us up with clients that I think USC has sort of built a relationship with, and we go in and help them solve, whatever. It's sort of like maybe a consulting class. I don't know. I've heard different things. I'm not really sure what to expect yet. I should probably look into it. Yeah, we do a part 2. But yeah, I think they pair you up, or if you have an idea of something you want to do already, you can maybe do that.
Okay. So do you have like a group then?
Yeah,
okay.
So I actually just filled out a survey with my like availability for the week, and I don't know if they're assigning us groups, if we're picking ourselves, but yeah, you're with a group of other people, and I think I mean basically the whole class is one giant project, so I don't think you have like exams. It's more like you present on the progress of your project throughout the semester, and it's a year-long course, so I have like the part B to it next fall.
See. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you take like both parts each semester? Like could people who are seniors in ISE next year start it in the fall then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's probably more common than what I'm
doing. Okay, that makes sense. You're just
Yeah.
ahead of it. Okay. I see. So then aside from school, you're also involved in Engineering Without Borders. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is?
For sure. And that's actually, I might actually be doing part of that for my senior design class.
Oh, okay.
So it's a good segue. But yeah, Engineers Without Borders has been a club I've been involved with since freshman year. It's a really cool service club that it basically utilizes engineering capability of students and professional mentors to help develop infrastructure in communities in developing countries. So when I first joined, we were doing a project in Guatemala, and we were trying to there was this like school campus that needed more drinking water, and they had all this roof space, so we were trying to figure out a way to capture the water from the rainy season that was coming off the roofs and store it in a storage tank that would filter it, and then basically that water could last them year round. So that was the first project I jumped on. The second one was one in Kenya. We were trying to fix an old broken windmill and pipe the water that the windmill pumped to a storage tank, and then make an irrigation system so that they could water their vast farmland, which was just like super dry when we first showed up. And then now I'm managing a project in Bolivia where we're building latrines and a sanitation system.
Okay.
So yeah, it works. I think water and sanitation are probably the two most common projects, but yeah, they have projects all around the world. We've worked, obviously, in Africa, South America, Central America. We haven't done one in Asia yet, but who knows, maybe one day.
So then have you been able to travel to each of the places you've done a project with? That's so cool.
Yeah, I did. I had the opportunity to travel to Guatemala. I couldn't end up doing it. I think I had I had like an exam or something. I couldn't go. Okay. But I did go to Kenya, and we are planning for Bolivia this May.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I feel like Engineers Without Borders, too, is a good example of how, like, different kinds of engineers can work together, too.
Yes.
Because the club is, like, your ISE, I know mechanical engineers, and I know, like, all these different sorts of engineers, but that's, like, really what the real world's like when you have...
No, totally. It's, like, I feel like of everything I've been involved in on campus, EWB has definitely been the one that is most applicable, I think, to... like the real world, as they say, and like an actual job. And I've talked about it endlessly in interviews for consulting firms, and I guess even non-consulting firms, because I guess the structure of the club and the way you go about managing these projects is very similar to a typical consulting project in that, your client, instead of being a business, is like a community in need in a developing country. And, instead of implementing like the new business tech solution, you're implementing infrastructure that, the developed world has seen for many years, but that the developing world hasn't. And you're sort of going through that process of gathering requirements, figuring out, what it is that the community needs, coming back and designing and building a technical solution to that, and then coming back to the community and implementing it. It's very similar. There's a lot of parallels. So I've been able to talk about it a bunch, and I feel like this summer when I work in an actual consulting firm, I'm sure I'm going to draw on many lessons I've learned from EWB and be able to implement it. So it's cool. And there's a bunch of different majors that are involved in the club, and it's a really good, I think, combination of engineering and service and people skills and all this stuff. I've gained so many skills from being
And can
in
you
the
kind of draw, like, on your interests? So, for example, if you were a civil engineer, like, interested in water systems, could you work on that part and say, like, your ISE, maybe you're more interested in kind of, like, managing the project, like, managing the system? Do you get to sort of pick those roles for yourself? Okay.
So, within each project, we typically break it up into 3-ish committees, and each committee is focused on a different thing. So, I remember when I first joined for Guatemala, I think we broke it up into, like, sanitation, so that a lot of chemical engineers were geared towards that, because it was a lot of, not sanitation, filtration. So, they're figuring out how to use chemical compounds to filter water. And then there was the irrigation team, and they were focusing on, like, an efficient way to set up the pipes so that all the land could be irrigated efficiently. So a lot of ISEs were drawn to that because it's sort of efficiency optimization. And then there was, I think, the building of the storage tank itself. So a lot of mechanical, civil people were drawn to that because it was, more mechanical, obviously.
Structure,
so, within each project, I think it's broken up in a way, typically, like, major-ish based, or where people can utilize, like, their own interests more. And then if you want to go into eBoard, I was obviously really passionate about project management, so I sort of transitioned into that role, which is, I guess, more oversight of the project and the people working on it than the technicalities of the project itself. But it's cool. There's something for everyone in it.
That's awesome. And do you have like a new project each year then, or semester?
It varies. When I first joined the Guatemala project, that one was, I think that was about a quarter of the way through when I joined, and it lasted like another year and a half, I'd say.
Okay, wow.
Or maybe 2 years. I guess it just ended. So, 2 years. So they're all kind of on different timelines. I think usually an EWB project lasts between 2 to 4 years-ish. It's tough because it kind of all revolves around fundraising, because we have to have the funds to travel in country and get materials, and a project can cost $50,000. So it's a lot of fundraising and fundraising heavy. So basically the faster you can get the funds, then the quicker the project goes. But,
right, I see.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's kind of an interesting ISE problem too, like how to get the materials where you need to be safely and like dealing with all of those requirements.
Totally.
As well.
It's a lot of moving parts, and figuring out how all that comes together is definitely a big ISE pull. Yeah.
That's awesome. So then you do more things. You're also involved in research. Do you want to talk about because I think maybe it'd be hard to picture what like ISE research looks like.
Totally.
So what is that?
Sure. So I do research at a center called CREATE. It's the Center for Risk and Economic Analysis of Terrorism Events, and we work with the Department of Homeland Security, which sounds really intense. And it's not quite as intense as it sounds, but it's still really cool. And I have been working on a project for the past year with first responders, specifically wildland firefighters. So we analyzed this new personal protective equipment. So think about like the gear they wear, the apparel they wear, so their pants and their big, fire resistant jackets and stuff. And we analyzed a new version of that, which was supposed to like help decrease heat illness and make the firefighters safer when they're fighting fires. And so we did this giant cost-benefit analysis to figure out if that was the case, and if basically the cost of the new system would be worth it, and if the benefits saved from not having to pay for firefighter injuries from heat stroke and things like that, if it would be net positive and things like that. So it was more on the financial side of ISE, but it was really cool because we were still working. We had to figure out the technicalities of the new apparel to see. That was a big part of analyzing the benefits of it. But yeah, we just finished like a 30-page report and we're trying to get it published. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And is that lab in the ISE department or?
Yeah, I believe it is. I got into it because I got like rejected from this consulting club sophomore year, and I was like, well, I gotta find something to do. And I googled like USC ISE research, and it popped up. So but I actually think it is an ISE, but it involves a lot of people outside of engineering too. I think one of the professors I work with is in the psychology department, so like actual ISE, it's very interdisciplinary and it combines a lot of different fields, which is really cool. So yeah, we'll see what other things come out of that, but it's really fun.
That's one thing that's kind of surprised me, actually, just about engineering in general, and especially research. So many times you're working with researchers in a psychology department or psychology research.
Yeah, I've noticed that, actually.
Like the human factor side of things. It's really cool.
It's definitely important, yeah. No, it's cool to see it all come together and get all their perspective, but yeah, the center has done a lot of other cool projects too. They had this really cool one with like detecting fake news and things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they've done heaps more. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's cool.
Okay, that's fair. And it also goes to show you like how easy it can be to get involved in research if you like really want to do it.
Oh, it was so easy. Yeah. I literally Googled it and then I found an email and emailed them and they were like, yeah, come in.
Yeah.
And I was literally going in expecting them to give me like menial tasks and things, and they're like, I remember during my second or third meeting with them, they're like, all right, well, we'll get you set up on the Workday and pay system, and I was like, I'm getting paid? This is great. And now like they're gonna make me the first author on the publication.
That's
It's
awesome.
like just so much has come out of it from like a simple
great.
email and Google search.
Well, good thing that consulting club rejected you.
I know, yeah, good thing. Their loss.
That's awesome. So then going forward, as you're graduating in like in 2021
for
fall?
bachelor's,
Okay.
May 2021, but I'm gonna stay an extra semester for my master's for
Okay,
PDP.
awesome.
Yeah.
PDP in ISE.
In project or in engineering management, which is part of I believe the ISE. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, if you those of you who are unfamiliar, USC has a program called the Progressive Degree Program.
Mm-hmm.
So you can stay a fifth year. If you get your undergrad here, you can stay a fifth year for a master's, or like in Phoebe's case, maybe if you had some AB credit or something, you can maybe cut it down to like.
I know people
semester.
who are graduating with their bachelor's and master's at the same time, which is crazy. Good for them. I'm gonna take an extra semester.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's a lot of engineering classes.
Yeah,
but that's awesome. And then going forward from there, do you think you want to do more sort of project management or consulting?
Yeah, I really like it. It like combines a lot of different things that I'm interested in. There's a very like human aspect to it in that like because consulting work and project management work is very, I guess, client facing. Like you're not behind a screen all day.
Mm-hmm.
You're interacting with people a lot, which I really enjoy. But you're also able to, use your technical knowledge to sort of build the solution to the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like it combines a lot of different skills, which is what ISE is all about. So
right.
I really like not being, I guess, pigeonholed into one task. I like the idea that I get to work on lots of things. So yeah, I'll probably pursue that. We'll see how the summer goes. I think I have high hopes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll do great.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what you do. Well, is there what's like, if you were to kind of not pitch ISE, but sort of like, obviously you love the major.
Yeah, I do.
And I know you switched from Mackie, so kind of like, for you, what made it stand out beyond, like, there's so many options as an engineer?
There are, yeah. I think, for me, it was just, like, one of the only majors I saw that was okay with you doing a little bit of everything. I feel like whenever I saw majors, either within engineering or not, their like mission or their description just felt very specific in a way that maybe because I didn't know what I wanted to do very well, like kind of scared me of like, oh, I don't want to, commit to something that soon. But it's cool because I feel like in ISE, you do get a mix of people maybe like me who aren't quite sure what they want to do, and ISE gives them the option to sort of keep exploring and have doors open after graduation to so many different industries and fields and things like that. But you also get people who are very like know what they want to do, have known since age 5, and like this is what I'm doing, and for sure like. So it's not, it's not like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, I'm going to do ISE. That's like not the case. There's so many people in it who have a very clear vision of, I want to do operations research, I want to go into supply chain, I want to go into banking, but I don't want to study finance. It's like you get so many different people, and I think that interdisciplinary nature of it and that exposure to just so many different like tasks and problems and ways of addressing things is so helpful to me. It's opened my eyes to what engineering can be in a way that I just like couldn't even imagine in high school. So yeah, that was really cool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I learned a lot about ISE. I hope
cool.
Thanks, Zee. All right. Well, I learned a lot about ISE in that episode.
ISE. One of my favorite facts about ISE is that we, because as we talked at the top, that students come in and they don't maybe necessarily know about that. And so there's always a small amount of students that start in their first year in industrial and systems engineering. But we always graduate, like 45 or 50 of them. And it's that students discover it, like similar to Fifi, this idea of I started mechanical engineering and I realized that's what I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I realized, no, it's actually this. And so that happens from all different majors where people realize, I think I like more of this top level idea. I like this idea of management. I like this idea of operations. And I'm not necessarily involved in the specific design of the gears or the specific design of that specific widget that's involved in that. I'm still an engineer, but I'm not that deep into it.
Right. And I think the cool part about this major is you kind of get to see those systems. Like in this episode, when we were talking about Fifi's sort of aerospace engineering internship, her first summer that she had an internship, you get to sort of work with all those teams and really see the technical aspect of what they're doing, but it is that higher level view. So you get to learn a lot about all these other topics, but you're kind of more perhaps at the systems level, which is also super important. And then kind of in the consulting and perhaps maybe more business or finance side, she talked about how she kind of felt like in the recruiting aspect for those internships, she had a leg up over business majors because she had that like super technical background.
Right.
And it really sets you apart as an applicant.
Absolutely.
So it's a cool program for sure.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for getting this episode going.
Yeah, of course. I think it's so hard. And I remember in high school, like really not knowing what engineering is. Yeah. And even honestly, my freshman year, I was like kind of still learning what it is. So I think it's important to kind of get some highlights in some of these majors because it is like super hard to conceptualize if you've not. I mean, in high school, you haven't done engineering.
No, yeah, that's why it's just too broad of a gap. And when engineers go to work, so if they're talking to parents or older cousins or whatever, and they're going to work and doing things, it's not, my job is not specifically mechanical engineering. It's going to be something related to how I'm using mechanical engineering in this particular role. And the person I'm working with doesn't have the same degree as me, but we're doing the same job. And so that's why it's really confusing as far as what's going to work best for you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people can learn a little more through this one. But.
Awesome.